show is sponsored by HiveMind CRM. It is more than just a CRM. It is a real estate and business mastermind that comes with an all-in-one CRM. You can have unlimited websites and users. You can call, text, RVM, and email all in one user interface. And you can set up custom automations for any type and multiple businesses. 65% of companies start using a CRM system within the first 5 years of business. Once implemented, the HiveMind will save you on marketing, give you more time, and make more money. One of our users had his first $100,000 month using our system in June. We want to see you automate and accelerate your business. Text us at 210-972-1842 for future meetings, and of course to get our $1 course on how to make more than 6 figures on one land deal. You can schedule your free demo today at HiveMindCRM.io.
Hey guys, this is Anthony from the HiveMind. Welcome to another episode of the Hive With Us podcast. Today is a very, very, very special day. We have a very special guest on. A lot of you are going to recognize this gentleman. If you do not, I'll just tell you that I started following his content on YouTube before I even got into real estate investing, before I even decided that land was going to be my niche. So I'm excited about today's podcast, man. This is like I feel like I'm in a dream right now. So.
You didn't even say his name. Come on, Anthony. You're rusty at this.
I want you to show his picture. That way you can be like, oh, I know this guy.
So we're going to do a double intro today to kind of flip it on its head, because I got into land investing because of Seth Williams too. And
Dude, I didn't know that.
I was truck driving at the time. So, and this is one of the biggest reasons why I do podcasting in general, is because I am a product of podcasting from Seth Williams here. So I listened to a couple podcasts. It was like Steve Trang, Seth Williams, one other person. I listened to Tim Bross's podcast when we did like the first few episodes. But like literally, the reason why I'm in podcasting is right here. So this is a very
That's crazy, man.
It really
I know it had any impact on either of you guys. That's awesome. I mean, it
really is. Here. It really is. I told Steve Trang this too, because I talked to him the other day, and I told him that too, and he's like, "Really?" I'm like, "Yeah," because like. When the thing is that people that produce content, they separate themselves to become an impacter and impact the world. And you don't really know the impact you make till you have conversations like this. So I really wanted to impact you because you impacted us. And it comes full circle at some point, and it's going to happen to us because now we're impacting other people too. So now there's it's like the tree branch. You've impacted so many lives that it's now impacting other lives, and it kind of spreads. So you, Mr. Seth Williams, I appreciate you, and I appreciate all that you do, just because it has made a difference, and I commend you for it, for the consistency and everything that you do. And I appreciate it, man, because I would not be here where I am right now without you.
Yeah, that is very cool. Thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate that. It's the funny thing. I met some people earlier this year that I thought, I think they're a big deal. And they were telling me, yeah, like I've been listening to you for years. I was like, are you serious? Like, that's crazy. You just never know who's listening and who's watching. And I mean, you guys probably know, like you sort of feel like you're just in this little silo and you don't really see what's going on in the world. But occasionally you get these glimpses, and it's awesome to see that. And sometimes you don't know till years after the fact, like with you guys. So thanks for letting me know. That's really cool.
No, man. It's an honor.
Yeah, if you guys haven't checked out the ReTipster blog or ReTipster on YouTube, I suggest you do so now, and you will not be disappointed. Lots of cool content that you put on there, man. Lots of cool people that you've interviewed and value you've brought to the world. So let's get into it, man. Yeah. We can kind of go any direction that you want on this show. It's kind of just like an all about you type of show. But I would like to know, I think first and foremost, like I said, Daniel and I didn't know until right now, this 1 second, that Daniel had started following you early before he got into the real estate game. So that it probably explains the land crush that he had. We both found that out mutually about each other before we even, became business partners, that we were both in a mastermind, that we were both the only ones that were interested in land out of everybody in there. Yeah. So a lot of our viewers, man, are newer people that get involved. They subscribe to our CRM and they kind of need some direction, right? So you, with all your experience, you've been there, done that. Where would you suggest that somebody who's just getting started might begin their land investing career?
Well, do you mean like, so somebody who's kind of looking at the land opportunity and they're curious about giving it a try, but they don't know like where to work or what the first step should be? Like, is that?
Yeah. Because a lot of people hear like just about houses, right? And so that's all everybody talks about. So when they hear about us and they're like, you guys are doing land, like what do you mean? How does that work? So if somebody wants to either get started or pivot, where are you starting in land, or where do you have your new people start?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think if you're somebody who's coming from the house world, you'll probably be pleasantly surprised to find that there's not as much competition in land. I won't say there's no competition, and the competition is probably like higher now than it's ever been since I've been in it. But still, comparatively speaking, what's that?
No thanks to you.
Yeah, sorry about that. It's not just me, by the way. Anyway, what I was getting at was, what was I getting at? Yeah. So compared to houses, the competition in land is just it's a much easier thing to find deals. Like you can do stuff that's not that difficult to find them, whereas house wholesalers have to work way harder, spend a ton more money to make any headway on it. Picking a market that you want to work in. I know what a lot of people do, and this is what I did. I'm not saying this is the right thing, but I had this idea that I needed to start where I lived. So I just picked the surrounding county from the county that I lived in. And I just started blasting out mail there. And it didn't take long to start finding deals that way. And it was a crazy thing. The first time I made an offer for like a few $100 and somebody said yes. I was just like, are you serious? Like I'm holding a piece of paper that's worth thousands of dollars right now. And prior to that, I had tried to find a lot of deals on houses, and I knew how hard it was. And just to go from that to the simplicity of getting land deals, it was an amazing thing. And then when it started happening again and again and again, it's like, wow, like this is actually a sustainable system. So really just picking a market. And I think there's definitely, depending on whether you want to deal with less competition or have properties that sell faster or go after more valuable parcels, like different markets kind of bring different things to the table in terms of benefits. But I mean, the deals are everywhere. It's just a matter of getting started. And the sooner you do get started versus just like listening about it and reading about it, when you really start moving, you learn a ton of stuff really quickly about what does and doesn't work where you're trying to do it. So, yeah.
Do you have a methodology that you use, like to get a new person started, like to how to identify a market, which might be good, maybe something that's not quite oversaturated yet? Maybe you end up too rural. I've seen people post these like desert parcels. I'm like, how in the heck did they even find that?
Yeah, those people make money on those things. It's kind of crazy. The first time I saw it, I almost couldn't believe it. I was like, because I had spent my first several years in Michigan, which is the opposite of a desert. And in my mind, like that was the standard. Like that's what people want. But I was mistaken. Like there's a lot of stuff, like I know in Southern California, for example, stuff that you made a ton of money from, and it's in the desert. It's just like, what? I don't get it. But I don't know if it's the proximity to LA and San Diego or what it is. But yeah, I mean, in terms of picking a spot that's not saturated, and I guess the word saturated, there's different definitions on what that means and like how busy a place is. Yeah, I know for a long time, the thing that I was pointing people to was places where the land is going to sell faster, because usually the bottleneck that people experience, historically anyway, like where people start feeling stuck is when it comes time to sell it, and they list it and they post it and they just sit there and they're waiting and they're waiting and they're like, come on, somebody buy this thing. And it's frustrating because like your money's tied up and you can't keep moving forward until somebody buys it. So knowing that has historically been the bottleneck, a lot of times I tell people go where it's going to sell faster, most likely. And you can figure that out by, sort of understanding where do people want to be? Like what places have intrinsic value? Where do people buy land from out of the country just because they want to own land in that area? And, historically places like that have been like Florida, California, a lot of the Southwest. And I don't know that's, things may be changing a little bit just with where things are at right now, where it's getting a little harder to find deals and properties are actually selling faster and for more money. So that whole formula may be worth reevaluating a bit, depending on what your issue is and what you're looking for. But so that's one way to go about it, is just to look at places where the land is selling faster. And there's lots of ways to see this. You can go to a website like Zillow and really quickly get a feel for how many properties are listed, how many days on the market are they typically, and click on a few listings and figure out how many views have they gotten, how many people have saved this listing, like how much interest is there in this area. Things like that can sort of give you some indicators. Yeah. So, that's one way to go about it. another way to go about it. So if you wanted to focus on areas where it's maybe easier to get deals and less saturated, so to speak, you could go to, I mean, I don't know if I can give you like specific counties or anything, but sort of reverse engineer that whole thing I just said about where's land going to sell really fast. Like, just forget about that for a minute and go to like some rural areas where there's not a ton of booming growth and there's not tons of people headed to that area. Those are areas where you'll probably have an easier time. Or you could whittle down your list a little bit differently in terms of focusing on, like, for example, tax delinquent properties. There's some people who violently disagree with that approach, and I understand their reasons, but getting a list where there's a lot of built-in motivation or problems with these people and their situations, and tax delinquent properties is one of those ways to do that. So, they're behind on their taxes and they're about to lose their property. And if they don't pay off their taxes soon, they're going to lose the thing. And you can basically find them when they're in that situation before they've lost it and give them a way out. And a lot of times these people are, I don't know, I don't understand it. I don't get what their thought process is, but for whatever reason, they're just kind of apathetic. Maybe they inherited the property or something, and it would be very easy for them to just put a for sale sign on the property and sell the thing, but they're never going to do that. And if you don't find them and give them an easy button, they're going to lose it. So anyway, that tax delinquent list is one way to go about finding those people and giving them a way out for a really low price.
So I have a question. With all the doom and gloom of the market changing, what is your go-to strategy moving to the market? Because I know people in houses are going to sub 2, and that's the big keyword out here. But what's for all the land investors listening today or in the future? What strategy should they go to, and what should they pivot to as far as doing land?
Yeah, totally. I think it's interesting. When I first got in land, it was actually I think early 2009 was when I did my first few deals, and it was terrible. I mean, it was like the worst time ever. And I was in Michigan, which is the worst state in the country to be for anything. And I was still able to make it work really well. And even in hindsight, I'm kind of surprised I was able to do that. But the reason it worked is because I basically just adhered to the formula of, I was offering 10 to 20 to 30% at the highest of what the property was worth. But the fact that I was really being conservative about what the property was most likely worth, and then basing it on that, it leaves you this huge built-in profit margin. So it's just really hard to get hurt on that. And there were times when it took longer than I wanted it to sell, but that's not really any different from any other time, really. But I would say, probably not if, but when a recession starts to hit us, just pay really close attention to what's going on and how quickly things are slowing down and how fast property values are changing, which is already kind of a hard thing. And it's even harder with vacant land. But, basically just don't get apathetic. Don't shoot from the hip when you're trying to come up with your property valuations. Keep those offers on the low end. And sometimes I think if you're in a hyper competitive market, and I kind of say that tongue in cheek because hyper competitive means something very different for land people than house people. But if you're in a competitive market, and if you can't get deals making 10 to 20% offers, based on lower values, then maybe don't work in that market anymore. Or make sure you have some kind of a plan B, even if you have to break even to get out of the thing. Just make sure you're in a position where you're not going to lose money or lose your shirt on the deal. And we've been in this rising price environment for a couple of years now, where it's like people can go out on a limb and offer more than they normally would or should because values are just going up and up, and it's really hard to get hurt. But that's not going to last forever. It's not sustainable. So I think the time is coming where it's going to be slowing down and maybe even going backwards. So just be aware of that and maybe try to temper any temptations you have to offer more than you should be offering. So of course, that also, if you're planning to alter the property or improve it, that kind of changes things up a little bit too. But I guess what I just said there is in relation to properties that you're not going to touch. You're just going to flip the thing.
That's what I was going to ask. So has your strategy evolved? I can imagine from 2009 until now. I guess it's a 2-part question. How has your strategy evolved over time? And then with the pending recession, right, looming recession, would you move over to a wholesale model, or are you still going to plunge ahead with just closing on it and just listing it and just waiting it out?
Yeah. I mean, flipping and not making changes or improvements has pretty much always been what I've done, just because I get it and it's simple and I don't have to learn a whole new thing. And there's opportunity cost to that. I mean, there's deals I'm walking away from where I could make a ton of money. But I think at some point there's opportunity cost to everything. So that's just kind of the path I've chosen. There is one property I bought last year where I have actually made changes to it and I'm trying to improve it, but that's kind of an exception. But I think in terms of like wholesaling, if you mean like assigning the contract, is that what you mean when you say that?
Or double close or any of those?
Yeah. So I've done that in the past, and it's not like my first course of action. Like that's not the first thing I'm trying to do, just because it can get a little, I don't know, a little muddy with trying to like communicate with multiple parties and insert yourself in there's the middleman. There's certainly some benefits to it though, because you don't have to tie up much of your own cash. But I have done it, and I think what it comes down to is like having the tools in your tool belt, like knowing, okay, now this fits that mold. I'm going to go that direction, as opposed to just militantly sticking to one strategy at all costs. Because it's kind of like the seller financing thing too. Like, I don't really like doing seller financing these days. It's just, I don't know. I mean, I know how to do it. I've done it plenty of times, but just with that experience, it's like, I don't know if I like this. I'm going to stick to cash when I can. But it's not like I'm always going to say no to seller financing. If I've got a property that isn't selling any other way, like I'm willing to go there. It's just, I don't really want to. So I think being aware of other options and knowing how to do it if the time comes, and maybe even like just doing it just because once, just so you can say, okay, I've done it. I know what's involved with that. I've experienced that. And now I actually can, intelligently decide if I want to keep doing that or not, as opposed to just thinking you understand what's involved and saying no or that kind of thing.
So we interviewed Clint Turner, and Clint Turner, he's like really big on buying like these big parcels and subdividing it.
Yeah,
and it's definitely a different model as a whole. But I'm laughing because you said I don't really like owner financing anymore. I don't know, see the value in it. And we interviewed Clint Turner. He said that was like his major strategy when he first started, and like he was going like his goal was like $50,000 in cash flow a month. And it took like 5 years to get that. But like, you're like, no, I'm going to take the cash.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, when we say seller financing, and I guess it's not that I don't see the value in it. I totally understand. I mean, I think for land investors, especially, like it makes a ton of sense, like probably more so than any other type of real estate I know about, just because of how banks won't usually lend on land. Yeah. So like, I totally get why people do it. And I did it for a time, but I think for me, some of the drawbacks that I didn't really appreciate or enjoy were, especially if you start doing it in multiple states, every state has a different set of laws on like how it works if you want to get your property back, or if you can get your property back. And if you're not doing any background or credit checks, like people are absolutely going to flake out and stop paying you. And then you got to go through these motions. And sometimes it's totally worth that. It's not a big deal. But if especially if it's like a super cheap property, like 10 grand or less, it's just like, seriously, like I had to do all this stuff just for this $50 a month, $50 a month payment. So just kind of the, I guess the BS, for lack of a better word, just not wanting to deal with that. And also like, you got to get the documentation right. You got to figure out the payment collection process. You got tax implications. Accounting gets more complicated. And all this stuff can be dealt with, and it's worth dealing with if the deal makes sense and if the cash flow is there. Oh, also, it takes longer to get your money back, to get your profit and move on to the next deal. Whereas with cash, like even if I'm selling for less, like I've got my money now, I can keep moving. And I think if people care a lot about the cash flow and the stability, then like absolutely, like seller financing is probably going to give that to you. But if that's not your main concern, if you'd rather have big influxes of cash, so you can take that cash and move it on to something else, then cash sales might make more sense for you. So there's just different things to consider.
Yeah, I definitely like grabbing the cash and moving on to the next deal. But we're doing some larger tracks. Like we just closed one where they put $100K down and they're going to pay $2,000 a month. So it's like, nice. We'll take a couple of those. That's usually how I vet them out. I usually look for 50% down, no matter what size property it is. So even if it's a $100,000 or $200,000 property, 50% down, and that's your credit check, because they're less likely to default after they have that kind of investment out.
Yeah, I also think when you're looking at the deal, like sometimes people offer seller financing as like almost as an act of desperation because they can't sell the thing any other way, and maybe the property like wasn't a great one to get in the first place. So sometimes it's almost like the deal is designed to fail because of those things. But if you have something like that, where like there's clear value there, people want it. Like your buyer has the means to put 50% down. Like it really mitigates a lot of the issues that would have been there in the first place, you know? So I think if you're dealing with that kind of thing, like it just starts to make a lot more sense. Even if you start going through the process of like actually vetting your borrowers and making sure they're good for it and verifying their debt to income and make sure they have the means to pay it and that kind of thing, like they're probably not going to default on you. You know, it's okay to get into a long-term relationship with them because the risk has kind of been handled for the most part. Whereas I know a lot of times I hear people talking about, yeah, like, I don't care who you are. If you have a pulse, you're approved. Let's do it. It's just a different, you know, you should expect problems if that's what you're going to do.
So have you evolved over the years? Because I didn't know you realized 2009. That's 13 years. That's a long time.
Yeah,
like a lot more experience than both of us. But it's one of those cool things where like we've seen a lot of people evolve like into commercial and doing multifamily and all this stuff. Have you gone down that path, or you're just strictly doing land 100%?
Yeah, I'm trying to. Yeah, I for me, and I think for most people, well, I guess I can't speak for everybody, but for me, land is like, kind of break it up into like stage 1 and stage 2, where stage 2 is kind of like the final destination or where you want to go, and land is stage 1. It's like the cash generating machine that gives you the cash so you can then move on to some kind of buy and hold thing, or even like something outside of real estate, some other bigger investment that's going to kick off cash flow. But if you just had your job, it would take you forever to get enough cash to get to stage 2. Whereas stage 1 with land, it's an amazing thing where it gives you the means to move there a lot faster. So for me, at this point in time, I may change my mind on this, but at this point in time, where I want to go is more into the self-storage world of, you know, acquiring those things. And I wouldn't say it's a passive business by any means, but it's much less intense on the property management end of things. And I've actually been moving super slow on this. I've been trying to get into this for probably like almost 3 years now. And a year ago, I bought a vacant lot that I changed the zoning on it. And it's taken so long, but for the past year, we've been trying to plan out the project, and we're hopefully going to break ground in the next like month or so. But I've said that for several months, so who knows? But hopefully we're going to start moving on this soon, and that'll be my first facility that we're building from the ground up. And that's actually kind of a backwards way to go about this. I think most people are probably better off buying an existing facility and just, you know, rehabbing it maybe if they need to, because building from the ground up is much more complicated. It's kind of makes me want to pull my hair out sometimes. But anyway, to answer your question, that's where I'm trying to evolve. And also just run an ReTipster. It's a very time consuming thing to run a website like ReTipster. And that's taken up a ton of time too. And it's been super fun. I've enjoyed it a lot. So I don't see it as a waste of time, but that's kind of occupied a lot of my time over the years and sort of held me back from pursuing these other things that I would have loved to do sooner.
I'm really glad you mentioned that, because that's what makes us unique. Because I do all the social media branding podcast side, and he does the land. So it's kind of like we kind of split force to create a better thing. Because running a podcast and blog is nuts.
Yeah, it is.
It's its own thing.
It's something that a lot of people in our position. I don't hear people talking about it very much. Like how difficult that is. It's insane. Like you can really like destroy any margin in your life if you try to do both to the full tilt. You kind of have to. I mean, I think you can certainly outsource stuff to an extent, but like at the end of the day, you can only pay attention to so many things well at the same time. Something's going to suffer. You can't do perfect work at both. Yeah. So for me, I spend probably 35 hours a week doing ReTipster stuff. And the other 5 hours a week goes into land for the most part. And it's starting to split off into the self-storage stuff now. So yeah. So for me, like I'm not a high volume land investor. I'm basically doing the deals so that I can stay relevant and stay aware of what's going on. And it used to be about like, how much money can I make for myself? And that's always, I don't do a deal unless it's making money, but it's less about that now and more about like what lessons are in this deal. Like what do people need to know that I'm learning from in the struggle of this deal right now. And that has a lot to do with the content that ends up getting put together on ReTipster. It's from what I'm, figuring out in my land business. So, yeah.
That's amazing.
That's cool, man. Yeah, that's something that I don't have to deal with. And then Daniel doesn't have to think about the real estate side. But yeah, he runs all the back end and everything else that we have going on, a million moving parts. But I think
sounds like a good partnership.
Yeah, it was a good, like that was the original hive minds. Like he's facing this direction, I'm facing that direction. And we're doing some damage in both areas. Yeah, I think we're doing a lot of cool deals, lots of creative finance deals. Like we didn't even realize that we're doing notable deals that people are like, wow, you put that together? Like I got a sub 2 house. And then I traded it for a commercial property, so we did a swap like that. So like just kind of crazy stuff that we put together just from, like you said, just from having the experience, grabbing the deals, and then seeing what we can learn from each one has been really cool.
Yeah. You guys like co-own an LLC that does these deals, or your different LLCs partner or something, or how does that work?
Yeah, several LLCs that were some stuff together, some stuff separate, but it's pretty complex. Yeah, and I think it's getting worse because now we're looking at we're rolling out a marketing company. So it's all stuff that's like layered into what we're already doing. So I don't think we're wearing too many hats again because each one of us is focusing in a different direction.
Yeah. Yeah. I bet a lot of people would love to hear about that. Maybe you've already talked about it. I just don't know. But I think that partnership thing, it's something a lot of people are curious about. Like, how do you make this work? Because there's a lot of ways to, join forces together with somebody else, but many different ways to structure it. And sometimes a certain way makes more sense than another. And I don't know. People might be interested to hear about how you guys have made it work. Sounds like it's working.
Yeah, I think being good at separate things, completely separate things, like the stuff that he's great at, like a genius at, I couldn't even touch it. Not interested. Like I would just hire somebody else. And so I think that was the fit. Is like he's never going to encroach on what I'm doing or try to enforce his ideas on the real estate side. And I would never do that to him either. To be like, hey, we need things to start going this way because I'm not in the trenches like he is, and he's not in the trenches like I am. So I think that's where the balance lies. And I never have to call him and say, hey, are you working? I mean, I know he's just busting his ass all day, and then I'm doing the same thing. Yeah,
that's awesome. Very cool.
So there's a question I want to get answered, and that was what I was going to say too. It's partnership works when you don't conflict. I'm doing everything, and I was pretty much what you just said. I've been looking into the blog thing because we're doing the podcast, and do you write your own stuff? Is that all you?
If it says Seth Williams on it, then yeah. If I didn't write it, then it'll say whoever wrote the thing. So
Seth Williams is a full-time content creator. That's what he is, and blog writer. Because I hate writing, and I'm like, I need to find a writer, and that's literally what you do. And it's amazing to see your cross. And it's even to put it in perspective, you do 35 hours of tipster stuff and then 5 hours of real estate. That's amazing to put in perspective because a lot of people think that you're doing all this real estate. And I'm like, I'm not doing all this real estate. He is. I'm not doing it.
Yeah. In terms of finding writers, that's good luck. That's not an easy thing to do. There's certainly plenty of writers out there, but if you want somebody who I can't really do it, to be honest with you. I've found a handful of people over the years that I think are pretty good, but there are, just dozens of people I've tried to work with who are it's just not there, like either they don't care about what they're writing about, or they don't have the experience, or it's just a mess. You can't understand what they're trying to say. In the internet, I think it's changed over a bit, since I started doing this. It used to be blogs were kind of a big thing, but I think podcasts are kind of the new thing now, where I think they're easier to consume and people can do it in their commute or just working out or whatever. Whereas with a blog, you kind of have to sit there and just have your undivided attention to read the thing. And video too, I think is a much bigger deal now. Yeah, there's all kinds of different directions you can go with it. And I don't know. I think what most people would be best suited to do is pick one of those and get really good at that, whatever it happens to be. Yeah, and just realize you can't do it all. So
I will take that. That answers my question because it's one of those things where I try. I'm always on him to try and produce content different ways because different mediums and stuff like that. But that blog thing, I'm like, it looks like something I don't want to do. And I'm like, and I'm glad you said that too because it's a whole nother. It's a full-time job.
Yeah, it can be. Yeah, it's
I'm already busy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think for me, I didn't realize I would enjoy it until I started doing it. Like I hated writing papers and I was terrible at it. Like I almost failed my first English 101 class when I was in college. So like I was not somebody who was good at this, but it's a very different thing when you're writing about something you really care about and you really want the person on the other end to like walk away with something and have this aha moment and change their life. It's almost like if you were talking to your child or your sibling and like you really wanted to set them up well for the future, like what would you tell them? Like how would you empathize with them and help them see the pitfalls and just understand the truth really about like you're not selling them on stuff. You're just saying, this is how this works. Watch out for this. And this is what you're best suited to do. And this kind of stuff. It's a very different thing when you have a reason to communicate well. Some people can do that well through the written word. And I mean, some nice things about it is that it's, I guess, depending on who you are, I find it's, even though it's time consuming, it's not particularly hard to make written content. Like with a video, like the lighting's got to be right. My facial expression has to be okay. I have to wear the right thing. My voice has to sound right. I have to actually say the right. Like there's so many things that have to be dialed in for a good video. It's very easy to screw it up. Whereas with a blog, it's like, even if you do screw it up, just go back and edit the thing. You don't have to reshoot the whole video. So yeah, anyway.
Hey, let me ask you, because I just have a marketer's brain and it never switches off. So since you guys are covering all this, what do you do with that blog traffic? Do you have like some kind of training or something where those people go to, or what's the next step if somebody wants to, go deeper down the rabbit hole with you into the land game?
Yeah. So yeah, I when I started my blog, I sort of built it sort of to emulate another blogger that I was following at the time, which was Pat Flynn of smartpassiveincome.com. And something that really blew me away about what he was doing. It had nothing to do with real estate, but it was just like super high quality content, like stuff that was worth paying for, but it was free. But the thing was, he was like actually making money from it, and a lot of money. And I was like, how are you making money? Like you're not selling anything. I don't feel like I'm being pitched on stuff. But he was doing it by, at the time anyway, he's got various affiliate links that he doesn't just like throw an affiliate link out there. He like really explains what it is and how it works and who it is and isn't for. And he's got other, random things that he sells. And so that's kind of how ReTipster works too. There is like probably the big flagship product is the Land Investing Masterclass at landinvestingmasterclass.com. And that's like a big high ticket course. And a lot of people have been through it and had a great experience with it. But even if a person doesn't have the money or doesn't want to do that or isn't even looking for land investing stuff, there's still a ton of stuff, a ton of value and education they get for free just by hanging out on the blog. I mean, whether you're trying to figure out how to set up your business phone system or mailbox, or I mean, just spent thousands of hours putting this stuff together with this approach in mind of like, this should change your life and you shouldn't have to pay for it. And if you do want to use this thing I'm talking about, awesome. Here's an affiliate link for you. If you don't, no problem. If you want to go somewhere else, you can still use this information for that. I love it because I'm a pretty terrible salesperson. Like I'm not good at trying to convince a person to do something. Like, but what I can do is just show you how something works. Like, this is just what this is. Here you go. This is what I did and didn't like about it. So there you go. And people find value in that. I don't really have to sell stuff because if they want to do it, they'll do it. And if they don't, they don't. And I'm fine either way. So that's kind of the bones of how ReTipster works.
That's cool, man. Yeah. I was going to say, your content did change my life. So
that's awesome. Perfect.
There's a cool quote that I heard recently is make your free stuff so valuable that that other people are paying for it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's actually, and people rip our stuff off all the time. Like it's kind of crazy. I find other blogs just copy and paste our articles onto theirs, and it's like, yeah. And I don't know. On one hand, it's annoying, but on the other hand, it's just like, I don't think that's gonna. Yeah, that too. I guess I try to take it as a compliment, but it's also it's just not the best long-term sustainable strategy to build something. So whatever. I try not to get too worked up about it.
Hey, why don't we chat about that master class real quick? Do you want to tell us where we can find it, what's included, and the price point?
Yeah, sure. So landinvestingmasterclass.com. It's where you can see pretty much everything about it. But it's basically intended to be like an A to Z nuts and bolts course on how to start and grow your land investing business. And it took me little over 8 years to put this thing together.
Nice.
It's full of videos, lots of downloads, audio files, stuff you can, contracts, you just kind of plug and play stuff. The thing I hear from a lot of people is it's almost overwhelming how much information is in there, but it's set up in such a way that you don't have to go through every single word from start to finish. Like it's almost like a playbook. Like you can skip around to whatever part you're most interested in. There's a really effective search function in there. So if you're just looking for one specific thing, like just search for it and you'll find it. It's a course that I'm in there probably every month or two to update or add something. So this is not like something I made 10 years ago and it's not relevant anymore. It's something that I stay on top of. And if somebody wants more help on something, like I do it, I'll add it to the course. So it's kind of this constantly evolving thing that continues to grow. And there's also monthly office hours calls where we do a call kind of like this with whoever wants to join, and we can answer questions for people and kind of give them live feedback on what's going on. And for the price point, there's 2 different prices. There's a bunch of bonuses that I think they're super helpful, but it's kind of like a phase 2. Once you kind of understand the business and you want to level it up a little bit, these bonuses will come into play. So if you want the full thing, it's $19.97. If you want just the main course, it's $14.97 for the basic one. So.
Oh man, that's such a great price. When you're saying high ticket, my brain goes to like 20 grand, like $2,000 for all the knowledge that you put together for 8 years. Like, holy smokes, man. Yeah.
Yeah. Shoot. It might be too cheap, honestly, but I don't know.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That was us too. Like we did initially, we created a course before we decided to go with like a community-based like mastermind, like around the CRM. Yeah. And that's what we were thinking, maybe like $5,000 or something like that. But like, you know what? Let's just grab some people and just make everybody be hands-on. But yeah, I can really respect that, man. For $2,000, all the knowledge that you guys can pick up for that amount, I would definitely jump on that right away. Somebody asked in our group today, who has a good class, an in-depth land class? And then here we are 10 seconds later. So I recommend that everybody get that. What was that website again? One more time.
Landinvestingmasterclass.com.
Boom. Okay. Yeah. Awesome, man. Yeah. Thanks for that. That's cool.
You bet.
So I really like that. One thing that I think separates you from a lot of different people is consistency. Like you've really drilled down to what your passion is. How do you prevent burnout?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, because I know I'm both with land and with this blogging thing. People burn out of both of those things very easily. And I understand why. There's a guy named Parker Palmer. I heard a quote from him years ago. He said, probably going to slaughter this, but some of the effective burnout is a result of trying to give something that I never had to give in the first place. So it's like, basically it's, you're not going to burn out if you really love what you're doing. Like if it's a priority for you, if it's a life-giving activity for you, you're never going to burn out, And I think people burn out when, I don't know if they get bored or it's, I don't know, the passion isn't there anymore. But for me, I think I know what it's like to struggle and to fail at stuff and just the disappointment of that. I remember for years wondering am I ever going to make it? Is my job all there is to life? Is it this pathetic? There must be something more. Please tell me there's something more. And it's kind of a dark place to be when you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. You don't know if it's there, or if it's just this imaginary thing that people talk about. And when I finally started to see the light and experience it firsthand, it was like, oh man, it was just this amazing thing. And I love helping other people see that. And I never forgot what that was like to experience the struggle and then experience the breath of fresh air of discovering the way and then getting there. It's an amazing thing to hear people like you guys, for example, just saying that what I did made a difference in some way. And maybe it's just a little difference, maybe just entertainment. Maybe it was like, hey, I paid for my kids' college, or I paid off my student loans, or I quit my job, or huge stuff. Then I'm like, I cannot believe I did that. I kind of can because I know how powerful this stuff is, but it's just crazy that I put this effort into it and it really made a difference for people. So hearing that kind of stuff as well kind of makes burnout not something that I even think about, because it's like, how could you burn out of something that cool when you see the difference you're making? So, yeah.
That's such a good answer, man. I feel the same way too, man. I'm like, there's a passion that comes along with it that makes always me wanting to do this. Like it's really enjoyable, and making an impact is priceless, man. It's literally priceless. So I've really enjoyed that. But how do you balance work-life balance? Because a lot of people struggle with. I mean, I think all of us struggle to a certain point where like whatever your passion is, you always put too much pressure on it to produce more. There's always something to do.
Yeah. You know, it used to be a lot harder than it is today. Yeah, I remember the days when I was working full-time job and doing land and rental properties and trying to do ReTipster. I mean, I don't know how I did it, honestly. It was crazy. I think it was just a couple of years there of just insanity where like I didn't have any time to rest. These days, it's much more manageable without the job because I can kind of just pick and choose what I want to focus on. I mean, there's some weeks where it's way more heavy in land and that's all I'm doing. And other weeks where it's way more heavy in ReTipster, or some days when I'm like really entrenched in this self-storage project I'm trying to figure out. But like at the end of the day, I get to decide what I'm going to do. There's nobody like barking at me, telling me what I have to do. And just that alone, being able to make that decision is a huge deal. It just psychologically, the freedom that comes with that. But yeah, I mean, in terms of the balance thing, so there's this understanding in my house anyway, that once 5 p.m. hits, I'm done. Like my kids are running in here. Work is impossible. Like I got to just disconnect and be finished. And I am. And the other discipline, I guess, is like just putting my phone down throughout the evening and when I'm not at work. So I'm not like bugged by that, but it's actually not that hard. At least with my wife, she's pretty strict about that. Like I can't really get away with anything. So yeah, maybe it just helps to have that kind of built-in system. If I was a single person, I would probably just work all the time, never stop. Cause like I really enjoy it. It's not like work to me. It's like kind of like play in a way. And if nobody was there, cracking the whip and telling me to stop, I would just keep going, which is like, I can't believe I'm saying that because I used to hate my work when I used to, do things that weren't this. So I just never thought I'd be in a position where I would enjoy my work this much. But yeah, so I think having people in your life who sort of force you to balance it out helps a lot. But my solution anyway. How do you guys do it?
I think I took control of, I guess, my time in my life. I've been self-employed for, 15 years or something or more. But I stopped setting an alarm clock a couple years ago, right around Christmas time. I did this for like I was taking off the last 2 weeks of every year for the last several years. And then this like December, I want to say it was 2020. I just said, I'm just not going to set an alarm clock for the rest of the year. It's like early December. And it just stuck. Like I rolled into January and I said, no more alarm clock, no more 8 a.m. meetings. All my meetings are going to be at 10:30, 11 o'clock from now on. I do that too. So I think that's probably been one of the biggest changes, because if I own my morning, then I can kind of visualize my day. I can do any kind of like morning rituals, prayer, meditation, all that stuff. And then so as the day comes, it's not hitting me like a ton of bricks. So I don't feel like I'm playing catch up, because I can strategically move into my day. I think that was probably the biggest game changer for me. And then, like you said, being in a position both financially and as far as like work burdens go, is where nothing is so pressing that I just have to jump on it right now. Like I'll just kind of let things come as they go. And then that's made it very easy for me to just take charge of my day. Yeah. So I feel like I can still do a lot of volume, and I'm okay with working late. And then unfortunately my wife is an enabler, right? Because she just knows that I'm just going to just do whatever I'm going to do. So she like, just keep on plunging ahead. I know she knows I'm going to make good decisions. And I will work around the clock. Like same thing, like you said, if I didn't have the littles and the wife at home, I would just work 25 hours a day and not even think twice about it, because I really do love it that much.
Yeah. Yeah. What a blessing that is, though, I mean, I don't know many people who, the analogy I used to make and still make, I guess, is like when I show up in this office in the morning, I kind of feel like a kid who's running through the gates of Disney World. Like it's that level of excitement. Like, I can't believe I get to do this. This is going to be so much fun. What is going to happen today? And that's just, a lot of people never find that. So if anybody gets even halfway to that point, like that's just a very fortunate spot to be in.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, man. being the freedom of choice to do what you want is priceless.
Yeah.
Like all the money in the world, I'd rather have freedom stuff.
Yeah, totally.
It's crazy. My chair just broke. Wow. Okay.
Been there, done that.
What is a quote that is yours or somebody else's that you resonate with?
Oh man, I'm actually I collect quotes. It's like one of my favorite things to do because there's so many good things that have been said in the past. Man,
I guess that's your quote.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, maybe. There you go. Well, yeah, one that comes to mind, I don't know if this is the best one, but so C.S. Lewis has this quote where he said that I don't believe that good work is ever done in a hurry. And I've found that to be true in a lot of ways. Like the more rushed I am in trying to get something done, like the lower quality my output is going to be. And that's a hard thing to accept because a lot of times, like the world is a fast-paced, rushed place. Like everybody's trying to do everything in a hurry. But on being able to sit back and kind of have that discipline of like, no, we want quality here. Like that's what matters. And especially when you're doing something like, I don't know, a video or a blog post or software, something that's going to live in the world for a long time. Like it's okay to take your time and make sure the thing is good. So it's doing its job well and not just kind of, a watered down product that's not doing a very good job. So.
Yeah, I use that one all the time. I'm like, how can I rush this? Like, do you think they were saying like, hurry up and paint the Sistine Chapel? Like, we gotta go. Like,
yeah.
You have anybody cracking the whip on you? That's a good feeling.
Well, and this is I want to kind of hit a different subject because a lot of people don't talk about it. But have you ever came across like depression or pressure through your entrepreneurship journey and how you overcame that? Because I know a lot of people, they come across different pressures at different stages of their entrepreneurship journey that a lot of people think they can't overcome. Mm-hmm. So what's something that you've done to kind of overcome those barriers?
Yeah. I don't know if I'd use the word depression, but anxiety has been a pretty big thing for me in my life. Are you guys familiar with the Enneagram personality test? You ever heard of that?
The DISC test?
No, it's called Enneagram. I hadn't heard of it until a couple of years ago, but basically it's like a 5-minute free test very quickly, and it sort of sums up who you are as a person and how you think. And I found it to be highly accurate. Like looking at the results, it was like somebody was reading my mind. It was crazy. But my type is type 6, which is the loyalist. So like I'm super loyal. Like when I say I'm going to do something, nothing is going to keep me from doing that. It's going to get done. But one of the downsides to a type 6 is they just worry a lot. Like they think about all the what ifs, or like they're always making contingency plans in case something disastrous happens. And that's definitely me. And the good part of that is I rarely get caught off guard. Like if something bad does happen, I've already foreseen this like in 10 different ways before it happens. And I'm always kind of prepared as well as I can be. But the downside is like, I'm worried about stuff all the time, and it's terrible. So I've had to like basically just concoct ways to deal with that. And for me, prayer has been a huge thing. Just, realizing that I can't do it all. And in the end, I don't actually have a whole lot of control. Like I can worry about it and bend over backwards, but like God is going to decide which way my life is going to go. He can make things go well or not well. So, but just like and it's not even just prayer, but like surrender. And surrender in my mind just means like, it's okay. I envision the worst case scenario and I accept it. Like, even if something awful happens to me, the minute I can accept that, I don't have to agonize over it anymore because I've already accepted it. It's kind of like forgiving somebody who has wronged you. Like the minute you forgive them, you can stop thinking about it. And it's not haunting you the rest of your life. We probably all have experiences with people who have like hurt us, and we just like stew on it and we're angry about it. And meanwhile, this person doesn't even know or care, but we're the ones suffering because we're not forgiving them. So anxiety is kind of a very similar thing where whatever you got to do to just let it go and just stop it from eating you alive, you're going to be way better off. So I think, whether a person is prayerful or not, finding a way to just like release it and just, control what you can control, and whatever you can't control, let it go. And that can be easier said than done for sure. But to the extent that you can do that, life will get a lot easier for you if you have anxiety problems like me.
Dude, what a cool, there's so much wisdom in such a short amount of time. That's amazing, man. And I think that's been a big part of my business as well, is I hate to let people down, like no matter who it is, whether it's a friend, a family member, a buyer, a seller, and those kinds of things will keep me up at night, right? I'm not worried about like financial detriment or even like health. Like I feel like I'm like going to live forever. But that's what does, if I'm creating or causing pain, even unintentionally for somebody else, that would drive me nuts. And I do have to spend a lot of time in prayer and meditation. That's very helpful. I've listened to the Tao Te Ching, right? Probably 100 times or 200 times on audio on YouTube. Whenever things like feel overwhelming, just put on my headphones and do that. I do a lot of water fasting, right? So that brings my energy down and helps me get clarity. I was going to ask you again for the name of the test, and then somebody asked it on Facebook. I want to write that down. Yeah. Cause I bet you and I are a lot alike. I want to take that.
Yeah. So the way it's spelled is ENNEAGRAM for Enneagram test. And I think there's multiple places online where you can actually take the test. There's like some longer versions of it, but the one that I took was like 5 minutes, super simple. But yeah, and I think the thing to remember is that nobody is strictly one type. Like, I think there's probably like 4 different types that stand out in me. So it's not like you can really be summed up that specifically, but just kind of understanding like, what is the dominant type in you? Like, what are you susceptible to? Like because like whatever type you are, like for example, the type 8, it's basically somebody who is sort of domineering. Like they're not afraid to tell you the truth and put you in their place and call you out. And the downside to that is that you can come across as a really mean person and be kind of a jerk. But the upside to it is you can stand up to bullies. Like if people are being terrible people, somebody like me would be like too scared to say anything. But a type 8 is going to go up there and like stand up for everybody. And so like Saddam Hussein was a type 8 and Martin Luther King Jr. was a type 8. So like there's good and bad to every type that there is, but just understanding who you are and like what your natural strengths and weaknesses are. And you can identify in what ways am I unhealthy in this type? Like, what do I need to watch out for? Where are the flaws in my thinking that I need to try to address in life?
That's cool, man. Yeah, now I'm really excited to learn about this because I am the first one to shut down a bully, and like if we're like in a group of people or whatever.
Yeah,
real quick.
Maybe you're a healthy type 8 right there.
Yeah, I was at a business event one time with a big. We had like 20 or 30 people from my team, and we were out in California, and I actually had to grab a guy by his shirt and drag him out of the building. Yeah.
Oh wow. Must have been fun to watch.
He was being that aggressive with my team members, and I gave him a couple of verbal warnings, and it didn't work. So the bouncers almost threw me out. But I'm like, hey, I'm doing your job, bro. So they let us stay.
I'll keep that in mind if we ever meet in person and I decide to push you around. I should know that you're going to come get me.
That's why I gotta pray and meditate to stay grounded. No, but I also use prayer as a business practice, man. So people like when they're working on a really big deal or something, when they need that miracle in their life, and they say, "What else can we do now?" Or wait like on an offer to get accepted or something. I'm just pray. You can't do nothing else. Just pray. You can't control it, right? And so I think we use that as a business practice. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. That's the interesting thing about prayer. It's like, it's not like a cosmic genie where you just like ask for what you want. But I mean, even psychologically, there's something about acknowledging this is outside of my control. This is the outcome I would like, but I will find a way to be okay if it does not turn out that way. Like the answer no is acceptable. And this is how I'm going to be okay. And just like thinking through that, as opposed to just like putting your head down and plowing forward and forcing your will in the world. It's a big difference when you can just step back and, loosen your grip a little bit.
Yeah, letting go. I think it's huge. It's been a huge part of my business as well. Cause I was that, all through my 20s and probably most of my 30s, like the plow ahead and knock down walls and buildings and everything to get my way. And it served me, but you'll wear yourself out. Talk about burnout, but if you can just accept whatever outcome, I think that's probably help provide some level of mastery in my business. Is like, it's going to happen with or without me, killing myself over it. Yeah,
for sure.
Dude, this was an awesome interview. We went into some cool spots that I didn't know we were going to head into, stuff I've never heard you talk about before. Maybe I missed it if you have talked about this previously on other podcasts. But, man, we just want to say we appreciate your time and energy, not only for what you've done in the past, but for also hanging out with us for an hour here. So, this is really amazing, man. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me on, guys. It was good to talk to you. And, let's stay in touch.
I always want to plug in your stuff at the end. So, ReTipster.com. Where else can people find you online, or is that the main source?
Yeah, so it's ReTipster, not REITipster, but
see?
I actually own ReITipster.com too. So if you go there, it'll just redirect you to the right place. So, but ReTipster. And if you go to any social media website, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever, just type in ReTipster, you'll probably find our stuff out there somewhere. So yeah, feel free to connect, follow, like, whatever you want to do, but that's how you can
definitely
find
check out the podcast too. And it's, I think it's, man, like I said, I really appreciate you for being so consistent. Like I said, hopefully the fruits, you'll never see the full reach of your labor, but I hope you see glimpses every now and then. And I hope we can provide that to you today.
Absolutely.
And I really appreciate your time, man. It's such an amazing honor to have you on and have this conversation. Like I said, we know you're the land guy, but to have meaningful conversations around that and even life and business, it kind of separates the land investor to the person,
Yeah, absolutely.
And I appreciate the conversation.
Yeah, and honestly, like getting into some of that real stuff, I think it's a lot more fun to talk about than land. Like land is kind of like the foundation of it for a lot of people, but there's so much more life beyond that. So I'm glad we could go there.
Hey, maybe we can have a part 2 and we could talk a little bit more about philosophy and some other stuff would be cool.
Yeah, totally. I'm down.
I would really enjoy that. Dope.
Yeah,
thank you
really
so much, man. We appreciate you, man. Thank you.
You bet.
And again.
You got it. Thanks, guys.
The show is sponsored by The List Guys. Do you need more leads in your local or virtual market? 1 in 10 small businesses don't invest in any kind of marketing. The List Guys have over 35 plus list types to choose from, and you can mix and match any list or criteria. We also use the skip trace list and provide up to 7 numbers and email addresses. Every list you purchase will be scrubbed against previous purchases. The List Guys are here to save you time. Contact the List Guys today at www.1listguys.com. That's www.1listguys.com.